Dead Island 2 isn't a zombie slaying game, it's the next big card collecting game. Move over, Marvel Snap, Dead Island 2 has entered the chat. Today we're going to go through every major category for skill cards, how to unlock new slots, the best skill cards in each of the categories and abilities and all that good stuff for this card game adventure. Let's go. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do like a full actual like build video for this build that I'm doing with Danny that's all about like attack speed and maiming enemies. If you're interested in that, let me know down below. So firstly, let's go over how to unlock skill slots and skill cards. So skill slots, the slots on your skill screen, they will unlock by leveling up and you'll get the last one at level 30. Skill cards, however, are very random in how you kind of get them. You'll get them from completing main story quests. You'll find them throughout the world, even just on random zombies. You'll also get them from leveling up, and you'll also just like find them sitting on a random chair in the middle of nowhere. It is because of this randomness that I'm not going to tell you exactly where all of these skill cards came from, because I don't know. They kind of come from everywhere. The general rule of thumb is that all the ability cards come from the main story missions, and then basically everything else, like the Slayer and Survivor cards and everything, mostly just come from finding throughout the world or quests, that sort of thing, and leveling up. If you want an in-depth breakdown of the innate skills, which I won't cover in this video, that is in my Slayer guide, so go and check that one out. Let's start breaking down the ability cards, and we'll start with dodge versus block. Now, dodging makes sense. You dodge away from the attack, whereas blocking, conversely, you take that damage. So for dodging, you can get out of the way of basically all of the attacks, and for blocking you can kind of stand there and just tank them. You can block indefinitely, so it's not like when you get hit you lose stamina or anything. It's just that when there's more powerful attacks, especially from apex zombies, that you will actually get staggered out of your block, and you can counterattack whether that be from a dodge or a block. It's just significantly easier for a block. In my personal preference, I'm a dodge guy. I prefer to dodge. However, if you're making a counterattack sort of a build, block is so much easier to counterattack with, that I have found. For some reason, the timing on like the dodge to get that like counter attack window just doesn't seem to be right, and you do sort of dodge a little bit early, whereas blocking, it's much easier to trigger that counter attack window to get that effect. So depends on your build a little bit. I personally prefer dodge, but if you're going counter attack, then go block. Drop kick versus flying kick. Drop kick is a forceful jump attack that will send enemies flying backwards, kind of like a crowd control effect, whereas jump kick is similar, except it is more of a damage single target ability. You can hit multiple enemies with this. It's a little bit harder, but it's mostly a damage kick that you will jump and damage enemies. Now, in my experience personally, jump kick is better when you buff it with the survivor skills because of the damage potential you get off of that. However, as a general crowd control ability, jump kick is still really good. Both of these work. I would personally stick with jump kick if you struggle with having lots of enemies around you, but if you're having some sort of a agile quick build, then the jump kick is better because of the damage potential you get from that. And say if you're sprinting everywhere, then you can quickly like snap off a jump kick without having to go through that full animation of the drop kick where you like land on the ground. There are 3 special attacks. First, we've got Warcry, which unlocks a little bit later than the first 2. Warcry lets out a yell that boosts your toughness and your nearby allies' toughness as well, and it also weakens the nearby zombies. This is a really solid co-op ability, especially because of the toughness boost you get, which increases like your overall resistances as well as the weakness to zombies. You can buff this even further with survivor skills to say remove status effects from you and your party members as well. I would only be using Warcry in co-op settings when you're in those environments where someone can run Warcry for the like support focus of the Warcry ability. Ground Pound is the first one you unlock as part of the story, where you slam in the ground. This is a great crowd control ability. You can't go wrong with Ground Pound, especially when you buff it as well. And my personal favorite, Dash Strike. Dash Strike, you dash forward and strike enemies, leaving them weakened. This is really good in an agile build similar to jump kick, but I prefer Dash Strike because of the fact that you can buff it. Now you can add Lightning Strike on it, which will add a lightning effect to the enemies that you do hit with, but also the fact that you can regain health when you do hit enemies with this. When you combine those 2 abilities, the Lightning Strike card does say that you do drain health, but it's negated by the fact that you regain health with the regain card as well, so you can get benefits from that. And in the build that I'm personally running, that extra like health you get from using Dash Strike rather than actually having to use like a med kit is super valuable. We'll do these next 2 together, the Fury and Special Attack Fury. So these are honestly personal preference. Like it's kind of like your ultimate, the Fury mode that you do get. This unlocks as part of the story if you haven't unlocked it yet. I won't necessarily say exactly when because it is sort of spoilery, but it unlocks as part of the story, and these have different effects. The first being Fury is how you build up that Fury meter, whether it be by performing counters or maiming zombies or even just using like melee attacks. That's dependent dependent on your build. Personally, as a main build like me, I'm going the surgical focus to when I main zombies, I build up that fury mode. Or if you're just like playing as a general sort of a build, the street baller, you can't go wrong with. You just get fury when you use melee attacks. Or if you're going a counter build, then blood rush, depends on your build. But then in terms of the special attack, overhead smash is basically ground pound while you're in fury mode. Scream is essentially war cry, and then spitting cobra is like a vomit caustic bile thing where you spew out like the caustic bile on the ground, kind of like those zombies as well. I personally prefer the scream here, though overhead smash is really good if you are surrounded by enemies, exactly the same as say the ground pound. It is personal preference for this, and for the most part, unless you're going a fury specific build, you're probably not going to be using it heaps, and it doesn't necessarily matter too much around what options here. It's really just personal preference. Let's move on to the survivor skills. Now there's plenty of really good options here, and firstly, the main one that I would pick up is safe space. So using medkits causes an explosion that drains stability from nearby zombies. It's kind of like a mini ground pound, so whenever you use a medkit, it'll just put out like a little burst of explosion that'll stagger enemies away from you. Really good if like any time throughout your playthrough to use safe space because of that value you get from that little stagger back that you get from enemies. In like the early stages of the game, where you're really struggling with say health or any of that sort of stuff, a really good combo is to combine invigorating, which counterattacks regains more health, safety first, so well-timed block or dodge regains health, and pain threshold, so block or dodge for a minor damage boost. You can combine all three of these and then use block, which you can trigger counterattacks very simply with, and then as soon as you counterattack, you get like a ton of health back plus that minor damage boost. It's really a great combo that you can keep using with all of these survivor cards as you start unlocking them. Otherwise, I would be using my survivor skills to buff my chosen special attack. For me, that's a dash strike, so lightning strike here, as well as the vivisection for the extra health back. If you are using ground pound, you can combine it with quake and flare up. War cry, we've already talked about rally cry to buff like the support elements of the war cry ability, but that's what I'd be using my survivor skills for. For the best slayer skills here, I would avoid slayer perks that only activate during fury mode as a general rule of thumb, unless you're about to actually enter fury mode, then you can switch up your perks. So because you can switch your skills at any time, if you know you're going to enter fury mode, you can just switch all of your slayer skills as well as some of the survivor skills that activate on fury, and then you've got these fury mode skills active, enter fury mode, have an amazing, just like epic, you know, having this most powerful fury mode time, and then you can just switch them back when it ends. You know, you get that value because you can switch these at any time. But outside of that, I would be using no mercy, so attacking enemies affected by a status effect boosts your overall damage. You're going to be applying status effects to enemies all of the time, especially the later stages of the game, so you'll get that just straight damage increase. The Limb Reaper is great, so when you maim enemies, you regain health. You should be trying to maim enemies anyway, just for crowd control effects, so great way to get health back. And then typically there's some really good character specific options in the Slayer line as well, so depending on the character you're playing, you probably want to keep an eye on these ones that say, you know, Danny only or something like that. For me, like hack and slash for a boost to my attack speed when I maim enemies just fits with my build perfectly, and that's a Danny and Jacob specific skill, so I'm using that one. Lastly, we've got the Numen skills. Now, these unlock as part of story mission 21. Once you finish that, you will unlock the Numen skills. I won't say anything more about that because it's just complete spoiler stuff, but these are Fury specific skills that will affect what your Fury mode sort of does. In the same vein of like the Fury and Fury special attack, this is personal preference. It's entirely up to you what you want to do here, but they're mostly end game sort of stuff that you'll tinker with once you're super overpowered. I'm not sure if I'll do an end game skills guide. Let me know if you're interested in that sort of stuff. Maybe we'll see. The last thing I want to touch on is the Autophage skill cards. Now, these are the skill cards that have this little like skull symbol on them, and these unlock at a certain point in the story as well. Now, this will affect your Autophage tier. So when you look at this tier system, it's sort of a risk reward system that the higher your tier, it will alter the way your character acts. I personally like Autophage tier 3 because it will increase the overall damage that you'll do, as well as you'll get some health back when you defeat enemies as well. But the trade-off here is that you have no HP regen and very little HP recovery from healing items. So it's a little bit tricky unless you've got like a good build, but the overall potential of this is really important to the build that I've got. But otherwise, I would stick around the tier 1 section or even tier 2 because of the tier 1 for the extra attack speed bonuses that you do get. But just pay attention to the skills you're applying, as it will either increase or decrease this Autophage bar, which if you are maxing it out and you don't want to be in tier 3 and you're getting like no HP regen, it's just worth mentioning that that's why that's occurring. All right, let me know in the comments down below what sort of build you guys are running. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.